Welcome to Off the Leash. My name is Jason Kenzie.
And I'm Izik Nox.
This is a show about everything animal news related from around the world. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a dog that rescues a cat, an eagle that attacks a photographer,
And a beluga wearing a harness. Our first story today takes us to Michigan.
where a dog has sniffed out the family cat after it disappeared after a fire ripped through their house and what?
And burnt it down. That's usually what fires do, they burn it down.
The house caught on fire early in the morning. The owner, she got up and she panicked. She grabbed the dog, but she couldn't find the cat. And as they rushed out of the house, called 911, they came, they put out the fire, and they could not find the cutest cat ever. 2 months later, she went back to the house. Well, actually, over time, she kept going back to the house to just, look around. And this one time, she went and brought her dog. And as soon as she got out of the car and went into the house, the dog made a beeline over to this little area where the dog kept sniffing. Pulled the dog back, and deep inside, she could hear the cries of what she later found out was her cat that had broken its leg.
The dog originally was just sniffing out for its buried treats, but it's like, oh, look, I found the cat as well.
This isn't the first case ever of a dog finding the cat after the cat went missing.
I'm actually surprised that the cat was able to survive for 2 months without having food or water. I'm not sure if the cat stayed in that exact same spot for the entire 2 months.
In fact, I bet you that it was the cat that caused the fire. Because they're always causing fires. Knocking things over. And
The cat could have very easily knocked over a candle or one of those lamps that people have with kerosene in them, set the house on fire, and then he's like, oh, I set the house on fire, I better go hide. It is also possible that the dog actually knew that the cat had set the house on fire, and it was like, I found the culprit, here's that little fucker, and the family's like, oh, it's so great to see you. And the dog's like, I don't understand.
Ringer is now in jail for arson.
What's our next story here?
Oh, it has to do with a couple eagles that got offended while being photographed while f***ing. Our next story has to do with 2 eagles that got offended while being photographed while mating.
This event took place right here in Vancouver. A wildlife photographer was photographing 2 eagles while they were mating, possibly fighting first and then mating in midair. Then they noticed that somebody was taking their picture without their permission, and they decided to attack her instead.
This is a crazy story. I can just imagine the photographer. She's sitting there, she's photographing these eagles. She's like, wow, these are the most amazing shots I've ever taken. Eagle pornography. And then all of a sudden, the eagles turned, looked at her, and they basically just charged at her, getting her in the chin, in the throat. I remember one time I was being photographed. I was just petting a donkey, and I got offended when I got my picture taken, because I don't want anyone taking a picture of me while I'm petting a donkey.
I don't know if you can imagine the Photoshop possibilities. The woman photographer did get away with some injuries and required minor stitches.
This is nothing new in the bird industry. Some of these bird people that go out taking photos of birds goes hand in hand with people that collect stamps. It's very exciting. People will come from all over the place to come and photograph a certain bird that is not supposed to be in this area. One of those such birds is Big Bird.
And yet no one has any photographs of big bird mating, so that is still to be taken. Photographing wildlife is always dangerous. You're always kind of taking a risk, and no one knows that better than Jason over here, as he is a wildlife photographer himself, and he has had numerous encounters where he was close to being attacked. And
By many animals.
Once you have experienced so many traumatic experiences, it could cost you your sanity, and hopefully that answers a lot of your questions about Jason on the set.
I just wonder, she was so focused on taking the photos that I guess she didn't realize that the eagles were coming that close. She didn't have time to duck. And yeah, these birds hit her. I know one thing about these bald eagles. They weren't really mating. They didn't really attack this lady. They were just in a rush to get over and watch OTL Animal News. And they subscribed. Please, subscribe. Links down below. Thank you.
Our next story is about a beluga whale found off the coast of Norway with a harness.
So how old do you think this beluga whale is? You should know this kind of stuff because I didn't see any wrinkles.
721 days.
So it was a baby. Baby beluga, do-do-do-do-do, baby beluga, do-do-do-do-do, da-da-da-da. Those crickets are pretty loud.
A couple of explorers on a boat have found a beluga whale off the coast of Norway, and it was wearing a harness. Now, according to their information, this harness said property of St. Petersburg on it, which makes a sort of a conclusion that this beluga came from Russia. Some people are speculating that this beluga was sent as a spy, but I'm not sure how good of a spy beluga would make. There's also some speculation that it was had a clip that could have held a POV camera on it, but no camera was found on the beluga. It might have sold it on the black market instead for some tuna.
Locals believe that maybe it was a spy from Russia to find out where all the great fishing locations are located in that area.
It is also possible that this beluga was being released into the wild and they were about to undo the harness and the beluga just suddenly got away and they didn't have time to rip the harness off.
The POV camera was probably set up by the same lady that was photographing these eagles because she also wanted to see some of the belugas. Blah, 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 blah. Not only did they find a beluga whale with a harness on it, they also found a seahorse with a saddle. They also found a starfish that had Johnny Depp attached to it.
They also found an electric eel with jumper cables attached to its fins.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining us on another exciting OTL Animal News. At least it's exciting for us because we have so much fun doing this. If you like what you saw and like what you heard, please subscribe and hit that bell. Hit that bell!
Hit it. That's right, that notification bell will notify you every time we upload a video, which is Thursdays at 6.
We want to hear from you. If you have an interesting animal news story that you think we would have fun talking about on this show, please send the link down below. And remember, always support your local animal rescues. See you next week.
Have a good night, everybody.
Welcome to Off the Leash.
Your best source for animal-related news from around the world.
My name is Jason Kenzie.
And I'm Izik Nox. As you can see today, we have nothing on our papers because we have no stories.
Seems like all the animal stories around the world have just stopped.
On today's top stories, we'll have a cat who got bionic limbs from Russia.
We have a man in New York that took LSD and f***ed everything up. It's true.
And cows that have been living rent-free for a month in Montana. Our first story today takes us to Russia.
This is incredible. There has been a cat that has had 4 legs amputated. And you know what they did when they did that? They actually screwed on some fake legs. He's going to be the next pet for the Bionic Man. That was a terrible show. I'm glad it got cancelled.
What's interesting to note is that the cat whose name is Ruzik was out in the cold and he got severe frostbite and gangrene on his legs and they had to be amputated, unfortunately. Now, Jason, how did this cat end up outside?
The cat was actually chasing mice. Wasn't able to catch the mice. Almost froze to death. By the time people found the cat, there was no way they could have saved any of the legs.
What's really interesting about this operation that this cat had is that the artificial limbs have fused with the bones. And that's kind of unheard of. Usually prosthetic limbs are attachments, but these have been installed directly into the cat itself.
The cat is now living an amazing life on all 4 legs. What's happening now is, if you watch the video, you can see that the cat seems to be liking it.
Well, I don't think he has any other choice, Jay. Would the mice not be frozen in minus 40 weather?
Well, the mice in Russia are like big and strong, like most Russians are. And they are adapting to temperatures below zero. In fact, some of the mice are probably the size of the cat. That's Russia for you.
If you take a look at the video, he's kind of like very slowly walking with his prosthetic limbs. I imagine he's probably getting used to it.
The mice are actually laughing at him from a distance, saying, hey, there's no way this cat is going to be able to catch us now.
Ruzek is also auditioning for next summer's blockbuster hit, RoboCat. Our next story comes from upstate New York,
where a man decides to drive his BMW through a fence, run around back, smash through the door, grab the family dog, and run out. All this because he thought that the house was on fire. It turned out it wasn't on fire. 2, it was his neighbor's house. And 3, he was f***ed up on LSD.
That's right, 43-year-old Michael Orchard had taken some LSD and he thought that his neighbor's house was on fire when he was actually hallucinating from the drugs. And he decided that it would be important to rescue the family's dog, so he drew his BMW through the fence.
Which is quite funny. I mean, if you look at the photo that we have here, it's interesting because he kind of looks like a certain Canadian singer that is from Vancouver.
So, Jason, I can only imagine what the dog was thinking. You know, he's just chilling inside his house, and all of a sudden he hears a window being smashed, and his neighbor comes in and picks him up and takes him out of the house.
The guy basically jumped into his car, and why did he jump in his car? Couldn't he just jump the fence? It must be a pretty high fence for him to want to wreck his BMW.
Maybe he was hallucinating, and maybe there was a fence all over the house, and he decided the only way to get close to the property was to, mow down the fence with his BMW.
What's fascinating is when he actually broke the window and he's standing there, picks up the dog, he looked over and saw that his neighbor also bought a gorilla, an elephant, a giraffe, a whole bunch of peacocks, and he was freaking out because I'm like, how am I supposed to carry all these animals out? Don't do drugs.
After rescuing the dog, he waited patiently outside the home as police and fire trucks arrived, only to find out that the house was fine and he was high on LSD.
Actually, the police took him to jail where he is awaiting a $15,000 bail bond. It turned out a week later, the dog had taken some LSD, thought that the neighbor was Michael Bublé, and attacked him because he didn't like his music.
As Michael Orchard got released, he went back home to do some more LSD a few days later, and he decided to be more calm about it this time. He went out onto his lawn. He just sat there on a lawn chair and watched his neighbor's house actually catch on fire and just watched it burn down right to the ground. He didn't call 911 because apparently he thought, oh, that's probably just the LSD kicking in.
Now his neighbor doesn't have a house or a dog. In other news, we go all the way to
Montana,
where a bunch of cows has broken into a house and lived there for a whole month, and no one knew that they were there.
Now, Jason, this is an interesting story. Now, if you have a brand new house that you're planning to move into and you're not going to be there for a while, I would imagine you would probably lock it and have someone check on it at least from time to time.
Well, what happened was the chickens were able to unlock the door, letting the cows in. Those are some smart chickens.
That's right, the cows have moved in and lived in that house for about a month. They somehow figured out to either open the door or the door was left open or it got broken down, maybe by a person. And then when the burglars found nothing in that home, they just left the door open and then the cows had moved in and lived there.
The chickens did it. You always blame the chickens. And what's interesting is the cows actually had, set up a TV set and they were watching Netflix and they were doing their laundry. And then all of a sudden, the owners who live in Washington, they went there to move there and found these cows living there. And they still had to go through the courts to get the cows out because they were smart cows. They knew all the loopholes. They had to get eviction notice.
These cows had actually belonged to a neighbor who had a very large head count of cattle, and the neighbor actually had filed for his cows as missing or stolen because he couldn't find them. He looked around the property where this house was located, but he didn't think to look inside the house because he believed someone was actually living inside. It didn't cross his mind to think that his cows had actually moved in.
Now, this would have been okay with the owners of the house, but it turned out they were vegans, and it didn't go over very well.
That's right, the cows were charged and forced to pay 800 liters of milk.
And they never did catch those chickens, the ones that let them in.
Parts of the house have now been deemed unusable as it was covered in about a foot of manure, and they had to replace all the flooring.
Yeah, but for the rest of its life, the husband can fart and no one would even know the difference because it just smelled like cow shit. So it's like, honey, did you fart? No, remember we had cows living in here for a month? And if you think this was such a bad story, there was a couple in India who came home to find that a bunch of elephants had moved into their house. Yeah, you think the cow shit a lot.
Well, at least it's probably easier to clean up elephant shit. As far as I know, they're like bigger, rounder balls. You could just like, just pretend you're bowling and just like toss them all out of the hallway.
Thank you so much for joining us on another OTL Animal News. If you like what you heard and you like what you saw, please hit the like button and the subscribe button and send us your comments. Tell us what you thought of what we had to say.
That's right, when you hit that bell, you will be notified every time we upload, which is Thursdays at 6.
We love hearing from you guys. We have so much fun doing this job.
And don't forget,
always support your local animal rescues.
Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a good night.
See you next week. Welcome to OTL Animal News.
Your best source for animal-related news from around the world.
My name is Jason Kenzie.
And I'm Izik Nox.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about smarter monkeys, an Arctic fox that walks halfway around the world.
And a man killing beaver. Our first story takes us somewhere in the North Pole, where a fox has been tagged with a tracker, and it has been traveling through many different countries and 2 continents.
What is so cool is this fox not only traveled over land, sea, it must have took a ride on a couple whales along the way, jumping on the back of some turtles. So what is so cool is this fox traveled for thousands of kilometers. How many kilometers do you think it traveled?
Thousands. Across the Arctic Circle, pretty much. It was attached with a beacon that showed scientists exactly where it travels. And looking at the story here, they actually have a little time-lapse maps of where the fox went, and it's pretty interesting to watch.
It was picked up by a couple birds along the way. That's why it traveled that fast. I believe that, you ever hear the word, clever as a fox? Well, this thing built a hot air balloon out of snow and ice, and it was able to be carried along the wind. Those foxes are very smart.
Of course, it probably won't be long until traffickers figure out that animals have good traveling means, and before they start load them up with narcotics to sneak them across borders. The fox has traveled for 76 days, after which the little transmitter stopped working, possibly due to maybe weather damage or simply the batteries have died.
It's a great story of survival.
It could have taken off its collar and just sold it on the black market for a piece of tuna. For our next story, we go to China.
What have they done to these monkeys?
Scientists have implanted these monkeys with the MCPH1 human gene to stimulate their brain growth, supposedly to make these monkeys smarter than the average monkey.
I will translate this in English for you. Scientists in China are creating real-life Jurassic Park. Scientists in China are creating real-life Planet of the Apes.
From my perspective, I think, just because these monkeys get this one gene doesn't particularly mean that they will get a lot smarter or human level of intelligence just because they share the same gene for brain growth.
Well, I do know that with this new gene, they will be able to have perfect aim with their Right now, they're just off just a little bit.
They have tested these monkeys against wild monkeys. Their cognitive abilities are far superior. The wild monkeys couldn't count at all. These monkeys can count it too.
There's going to be a new monkey business in China. And it says here, they're going to replace all the sweatshops with monkey shops.
Because monkeys sweat less. It won't be long before these monkeys start assembling computers and cell phones.
Yeah, the new smartphone ape is due out Christmas 2020. I wouldn't lie about this stuff. Links down below.
Jay, I imagine that in the further future, they probably do plan to have these monkeys at work for them. Maybe not in a sweatshop, but in some sort of a facility where the monkeys actually does a particular task.
There's one other thing that's even more incredible about that, is once these monkeys have grown to full adulthood, one of them will be able to replace Mariah Carey. She will never have to lip sync again.
These monkeys will be implanted with the "Don't f*** up your New Year's Eve lip sync edition" gene. Our next story takes us to Belarus, where a man has been killed while attempting to take a photo of a beaver.
This is crazy. So the man's out fishing. He's like, not caught nothing. Not caught nothing. Well, a beaver. He jumps out of the boat, wades over, and tries to get really close with the beaver. The beaver hated that side of his face, grabbed the cell phone, and said, "Hey, get away from me. This is my good side." Bit the guy in the leg. And basically, yeah, the guy bled to death right there. What you don't do is try and get a photo of a beaver.
Yeah, really close up as the beaver bites into your thigh and you bleed out from your arteries, which is exactly what happened to this man. Unfortunately, like Jay, I'm pretty sure everybody knows that wildlife is dangerous, and even though beavers look kind of cute, they have massive teeth that are designed to bite through wood. So your leg won't be any challenge for it.
What they don't tell you in the story is it wasn't the beaver that actually killed him. While he was taking a picture of the beaver, there was a chipmunk right behind the beaver that didn't want to get his picture taken, went over and said, "Hey, you erase that picture." The guy said no. Chipmunk bit him in the leg, and that's what really killed him.
It turned out the chipmunk had a criminal record and it didn't want its picture taken.
It's true. We can't make this shit up. Links down below.
It is unusual for beavers to make attacks on humans, but I imagine as every animal, when it feels cornered or in danger, it will attack. Sometimes you'll see a mouse, or a rat attack a cat, even though a cat is like 10 times its size.
Now that the guy had passed away, the beaver had moved his entire family into the guy's house. I mean, heck, who wants to live in water in a house full of sticks anyway? For the last 2 years, Bucky the beaver has not been seen, but we do know his last words were, "Subscribe to OTL Animal News." Subscribe. Thank you. Links down below. Thank you so much for joining us on another OTL Animal News episode. If you like what you heard and you like what you saw, please subscribe and hit that bell. Hit that bell!
Hit it.
And what happens every Thursday at 6 p.m.?
We upload another episode. And when you hit that bell, you will be notified automatically.
And there are links for all the stories that we have talked about today down below. And there's a secret link. But there is one very important thing that I want you to take away from watching our video, and that is to always support your local animal rescues.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time. Welcome to OTL Animal News.
Your best source for animal-related news from around the world.
My name is Jason Kenzie.
And I'm Izik Nox.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about smarter monkeys, an Arctic fox that walks halfway around the world.
And a man killing beaver. Our first story takes us somewhere in the North Pole, where a fox has been tagged with a tracker, and it has been traveling through many different countries and 2 continents.
What is so cool is this fox not only traveled over land, sea, it must have took a ride on a couple whales along the way, jumping on the back of some turtles. So what is so cool is this fox traveled for thousands of kilometers. How many kilometers do you think it traveled?
Thousands. Across the Arctic Circle, pretty much. It was attached with a beacon that showed scientists exactly where it travels. And looking at the story here, they actually have little time-lapse maps of where the fox went, and it's pretty interesting to watch.
It was picked up by a couple birds along the way. That's why it traveled that fast. I believe that, you ever hear the word, clever as a fox? Well, this thing built a hot air balloon out of snow and ice, and it was able to be carried along the wind. Those foxes are very smart.
Of course, it probably won't be long until traffickers figure out that animals have good traveling means, and before they start load them up with narcotics to sneak them across borders. The fox has traveled for 76 days, after which the little transmitter stopped working, possibly due to maybe weather damage or simply the batteries have died.
It's a great story of survival.
It could have taken off its collar and just sold it on the black market for a piece of tuna. For our next story, we go to China.
What have they done to these monkeys?
Scientists have implanted these monkeys with the MCPH1 human gene to stimulate their brain growth, supposedly to make these monkeys smarter than the average monkey.
I will translate this in English for you. Scientists in China are creating real-life Jurassic Park. Scientists in China are creating real-life Planet of the Apes.
From my perspective, I think, just because these monkeys get this one gene doesn't particularly mean that they will get a lot smarter or human level of intelligence just because they share the same gene for brain growth.
Well, I do know that with this new gene, they will be able to have perfect aim with their Right now, they're just off just a little bit.
They have tested these monkeys against wild monkeys. Their cognitive abilities are far superior. The wild monkeys couldn't count at all. These monkeys can count it too.
There's going to be a new monkey business in China. And it says here, they're going to replace all the sweatshops with monkey shops.
Because monkeys sweat less. It won't be long before these monkeys start assembling computers and cell phones.
Yeah, the new smartphone ape is due out Christmas 2020. I wouldn't lie about this stuff. Links down below.
I imagine that in the further future, they probably do plan to have these monkeys work for them. Maybe not in a sweatshop, but in some sort of a facility where the monkeys actually does a particular task.
There's one other thing that's even more incredible about that, is once these monkeys have grown to full adulthood, one of them will be able to replace Mariah Carey. She will never have to lip sync again.
These monkeys will be implanted with the Don't F*** Up Your New Year's Eve Lip Sync Edition gene. Our next story takes us to Belarus, where a man has been killed while attempting to take a photo of a beaver.
This is crazy. So the man's out fishing. He's like, not caught nothing. Not caught nothing. Well, a beaver. He jumps out of the boat, wades over, and tries to get really close with the beaver. The beaver hated that side of his face, grabbed the cell phone, and said, "Hey, get away from me. This is my good side." Bit the guy in the leg. And basically, yeah, the guy bled to death right there. What you don't do is try and get a photo of a beaver.
Yeah, really close up as the beaver bites into your thigh and you bleed out from your arteries, which is exactly what happened to this man. Unfortunately, like Jay, I'm pretty sure everybody knows that wildlife is dangerous, and even though beavers look kind of cute, they have massive teeth that are designed to bite through wood. So your leg won't be any challenge for it.
What they don't tell you in the story is it wasn't the beaver that actually killed him. While he was taking a picture of the beaver, there was a chipmunk right behind the beaver that didn't want to get his picture taken, went over and said, "Hey, you erase that picture." The guy said no. Chipmunk bit him in the leg, and that's what really killed him.
It turned out the chipmunk had a criminal record and it didn't want its picture taken.
It's true. We can't make this shit up. Links down below.
It is unusual for beavers to make attacks on humans, but I imagine as every animal, when it feels cornered or in danger, it will attack. Sometimes you'll see a mouse, or a rat attack a cat, even though a cat is like 10 times its size.
Now that the guy had passed away, the beaver had moved an entire family into the guy's house. I mean, heck, who wants to live in water in a house full of sticks anyway? For the last 2 years, Bucky the beaver has not been seen, but we do know his last words were, "Subscribe to OTL Animal News." Subscribe. Thank you. Links down below. Thank you so much for joining us on another OTL Animal News episode. If you like what you heard and you like what you saw, please subscribe and hit that bell. Hit that bell!
Hit it.
And what happens every Thursday at 6 p.m.?
We upload another episode. And when you hit that bell, you will be notified automatically.
And there are links for all the stories that we have talked about today down below. And there's a secret link. But there is one very important thing that I want you to take away from watching our video, and that is to always support your local animal rescues.
Thanks for watching.
See you next week. Welcome to Off the Leash Animal News. This is your best source for animal news from around the world. My name is Jason Kenzie.
And I'm Izik Nox.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about Bigfoot or Sasquatch, the Loch Ness Monster, and the Leprechauns, mother. On this episode, we're going to be talking about something extremely different that is kind of animal related. Izik believes in all of them. Go ahead, Izik.
Our first story takes us to Utah, where a group of hunters believe that they have seen Sasquatch.
Bullshit. I don't believe you. I bet you it was just a big fat bear walking on two legs.
Although they believe that it looks nothing like a bear. I mean, the figure that they actually have video of this, the figure that they see up in the mountains, it's brown, it's got fur, and it's big and it moves slow. Nothing like a bear.
Locals believe that there is Sasquatch walking around these hills. Is it real? I don't know. For me, maybe, possibly it was a guy in a bear suit.
Or it could have been a bear in a bear suit.
It happens, right? They end up, killing another bear and going, wow, his fur is much cleaner and much shinier than mine. I'm just going to put this on. On a serious note, Sasquatch has been sighted over the years. It was first sighted by a guy by the name of Bob Gimbo. This guy filmed this big hairy thing walking through a riverbed.
It could have been just an extremely hairy person who had lost his sanity, decided to rip all his clothes off and go live in the woods.
Hey, I only did that once. A bunch of hunters that was in Utah happened to start filming this creature up on this kind of rocky bluff, watching what does seem to be something quite big walking on two legs.
Although it is known that bears sometimes when they're in attack mode, they do get up on two legs.
There's a video down below, you can check it out, make your opinion. Hey, you know what? Tell us what you think. Do you believe that Sasquatch is real? In other news, we go all the way across the ocean to Scotland, where locals have recently seen the Loch Ness Monster. Yes, this big giant creature that is about 30 feet long and has the face of a dragon. It was seen 5 days. Day 1, it was seen swimming. Day 2, it was also seen swimming. Day 3, still swimming. 4, it was swimming a lot on that day. And 5, it was sunbathing. I couldn't make this stuff up.
The head of the Loch Ness Monster kind of looks like a snake, Jason, from every single picture ever of it. So is it possible that it could be a snake?
That could be true.
I don't know, Jason. To me, that also looks like it could be a human foot sticking out. It looks like almost like a person dove and one of the feet got stuck upside down, and it kind of looks like just a foot sticking out.
Well, what do you know? And you know what? It looks like it does have athlete's foot. Well, this is incredible. Loch Ness Monster is someone's foot.
Funny enough, there's absolutely zero high-resolution photos of this monster and of any other monster. They always seem to be very low resolution and very far away, which kind of makes this story very suspicious.
I believe that the Loch Ness Monster is a blur. They should change the name to the Loch Ness Blur. Hey, look, a blur. The other day, Ma, I saw a blur swimming in the water. We have way too much fun here.
For our next story, we're going to talk about, you guessed it, leprechauns.
Little wee leprechauns, which are also real. Obviously, they're real because there's also high-res pictures and videos of these little guys as they are making chocolate for you.
Now, I know sometimes there's other creatures that could be mistaken for leprechauns, like the little gnomes on people's lawns and also trolls.
Leprechauns have been around for thousands of years, and that's why none of them look young. They all have big beards, really wrinkled. Nowadays, you should be able to catch them because they have little canes and they walk really slow with their pot of gold.
You may also need to take some extreme medication in order to see them.
Where are they again? Where are
The
they?
leprechauns?
Yeah, the leprechauns are... yeah, in your head. So there was a family in Ireland. They were out on a picnic when all of a sudden she turns around and she sees one of her kids being dragged away by a leprechaun. This is so true from her words. And she grabs the leprechaun and says, "Hey, where the hell's your gold?" You know, she didn't really care about her kid. She wanted the gold. Because this is what happens. And the leprechaun grabbed her by the throat, flipped her around, and threw her off into the forest.
So the moral of the story is don't pop acid tabs in front of your kids.
Well, thank you so much for putting up with our silly humor. And yes, this was a different episode, you know, with monsters and myths. We had so much fun, as you can see.
All the links to the stories don't actually exist below because these stories are 100% bullshit. Be sure to hit that notification bell to be notified every time we upload, which is Thursdays at 6.
And before we let you go, I just want to let you know that there has been an update to the stories that we've talked about. There has been a sighting of Sasquatch riding the Loch Ness Monster while eating one of the little green guys. Hit that subscribe button, please. We love hearing from you guys. If you have a story that you think might be interesting for us to talk about, please send us the link down below. And remember, always support your local animal rescues. We'll see you next week.
Have a good night, everybody.
Hi, welcome to Off the Leash.
Your best source for animal news stories from around the world.
My name is Jason Kenzie.
And I'm Izik Nox.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about a venomous caterpillar,
An alligator on another alligator,
and a dog that is stuck in tar. In Georgia, there is a venomous caterpillar that was found in a garden alongside of water found in a lake and grass found in earth.
Poisonous caterpillars have been sighted in this lady's garden as well as all of Georgia, Florida, and basically everywhere in the world.
Did you know that there was venomous caterpillars on earth?
No, I wasn't sure of how many caterpillars are actually venomous. Usually it's the ones that have extreme colors on them that are a clear sign from Mother Nature, do not touch.
It scared me. I don't think I could ever watch Alice in Wonderland again. There was a lady that was in Georgia that was in her garden, and as she went to pluck carrots, that's right, carrots, she rubbed against one of these venomous caterpillars. Within seconds, she felt burning, and it was like almost like an acid. And she was rushed to the hospital, where the doctors looked at the burn marks and said, "You pussy, it's a caterpillar. Get back there and bring me some turnips." I wouldn't lie about this stuff.
I thought it was carrots.
She was done with carrots. Turnips are way better.
Usually when a caterpillar leaves venom on a person's skin would be that there's certain pattern left behind. Scientists advise not to stroke the caterpillars.
Thank goodness. Because, you know, there's people out there now which are stroking caterpillars.
And getting venom all over their skin.
And enjoying it too. Which is terrible. How dare these people? You know, can't they do something like, I don't know, go get a cat, stroke the cat. So next time you guys are gardening, watch what you rub up against.
Our next story takes us to Florida.
There was a family visiting from Georgia, and in the morning they woke up and they found an alligator lying on top of a blow-up alligator. The picture is hilarious. Have you been to Florida?
I have numerous times.
It's a great
It's
place.
really nice, yes.
It's really nice. The alligators love you, kiss you, and pull you under the water, or they'll roll you and kill you.
Now the blow-up alligator is significantly larger than other real alligators, so maybe it was like, you're not bigger than me, and it wanted to dominate it, and it decided to mount it.
You know, these alligators are not the brightest. All they're eating is mud and turtles.
The family did say that they believe they saw their dog interacting with someone outside by the pool. I imagine the dog was probably interacting with this alligator.
What's also interesting is what the family doesn't know is the gator had stolen their American Express card, called up Amazon Prime, and same day order had shipped a blow-up gator to him for his personal pleasure.
Both alligators were unsure which one of them actually got used in this scenario.
The alligator is now suing the blow-up alligator because this alligator had no idea it wasn't a real alligator and wants its money back.
Our next story comes from Poland, where a tiny little dog has accidentally been trapped in tar.
It wasn't tiny, actually.
Where a small dog has accidentally trapped itself in tar.
He was off having a smoke break, and I guess he had too much cigarettes in one go. So much tar poured onto the ground where he finally got stuck. He laid there for a couple nights, and he did non-stop barking until villagers not far away heard the cries and came running, because they were all smokers too, and they just really wanted to get some of those cigarettes.
The dog did end up getting rescued. According to sources, the dog was stuck in there for almost 2 days, so it was actually very lucky to have survived. They've managed to get him out with a team of professionals and get him cleaned up.
The dog is very excited to see Jurassic Park now. Because, dinosaurs, they died millions of years ago by falling into tar. Usually when you say a joke and you have to explain it, it's not funny anymore. So this dog has recouped. It's now living a really good life, but it does have a major addiction to cigarettes.
Unfortunately, a couple days after this dog got rescued, it went out for a smoke again, and since it wasn't very smart, it fell into the tar again, so it ended up getting re-tarred.
He wasn't a heavy smoker before, and now he is. So he is now suing the tobacco company.
Of course, the company that filed back claiming that the tar could have been put into his lungs while he was laying in the tar with his mouth and not from cigarettes.
On a serious note, how did he end up in the tar to begin with? That was a big question. Just running along, he probably put one paw in and got it stuck, and he put the other paw in to get out the other paw, and that got stuck. And then he decided to just kind of roll around in some duck poop that was off to the side, because that's what dogs do. He got stuck that way, and he's thinking, this is what happened to the dinosaurs. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of OTL Animal News. We want to hear from you guys. If you have an interesting news story that's animal related and you think we will have so much fun discussing it, please send the link down below. On a good note, once the dog got released and he subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. Links down below. Thank you.
Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell. It will notify you every time we upload, which is Thursdays at 6.
And remember, always support your local animal rescues, because you never know when a dog is going to fall into some tar. See you next week.
Have a good night, everybody.
Welcome to Off the Leash Animal News.
Your best source for animal-related news from around the planet.
My name is Jason Kenzie.
And I'm Izik Nox.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about a rattlesnake, moonshine, a gun, and radioactive uranium.
We're also going to be talking about a jellyfish that looks like fried eggs found off the coast of Vancouver.
And a cat that fights with a rattlesnake for a robin.
Our first story takes us to Oklahoma. A man in Oklahoma City has been pulled over, and the police officer has found some interesting things in his vehicle. Moonshine, a rattlesnake, guns, and uranium.
What? That is crazy!
Yes.
The guy had a pet rattlesnake?
This doesn't happen very often. Police doesn't come up to a car and just like, what, you have a rattlesnake?
What if he got bit by a rattlesnake? So that's right. This guy had radioactive materials in his car next to the snake. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, how did this guy get this radioactive substance? I mean, the guy was probably drunk. He had a gun. He had everything to go and rob a bank. This is such a true story.
As far as the moonshine goes, there's no specification as to what it was extracted from. The uranium was not weapons grade. Surely after, some lab work, it could have been configured to create something dangerous, like an X-ray machine.
In turn, the snake did start talking, though, which is unheard of.
For the police officer, it probably was like a routine stop. It's like he pulls the guy over. He's like, "Do you have any dangerous goods in your vehicle?" And the man says, "Well, not really. I have some, guns, moonshine, a rattlesnake, and some uranium." And the officer's like, "Okay, do you have any knives by any chance?"
What would be the purpose of having uranium?
It is possible that maybe the snake was his pet, and it had some broken ribs. Found some uranium, and he's like, "Oh, I know how to build an X-ray machine." Moonshine may have been a factor in creating some of these decisions. Now, uranium is legal to be purchased in certain states, probably not in Oklahoma, but that's a kind of weird policy to have, Jay. I mean, imagine, cop pulls you over, he's like, "Do you have any illegal goods?" I'm like, "Nope, everything I have is legal, I just have my soda here, I have some uranium." The officer's like, "Okay, sounds good," it sends you on your way. It's
I'll talk to you later.
Not something you hear every day, right?
Going to the bomb-making meetup group. So this guy who was pulled over, his name is Stephen Jennings, and he's an ex-con.
After the police pulled him over, he had to call in the SWAT team. They all surrounded him, they took him to the ground, and they arrested him for having a broken taillight.
In other news, off the coast of Vancouver, there has been a jellyfish with a strange name. They call it the fried egg jellyfish. It looks like a giant fried egg.
I don't know, looking at the picture, Jay, it kind of looks like it still needs some frying. I would call it an over-easy jellyfish. Jason, are these jellyfish toxic?
No, because the venom is so weak that actual sea life ride them.
Kind of like a sea Uber.
That's right. Vancouver should take notes. Even the ocean has an Uber. There's only one other species of jellyfish that are very jealous of these jellyfish, and that is the hard-boiled jellyfish. They're just completely round, and they just kind of bob up and down in the ocean. None of these fast food restaurants in the Lower Mainland will franchise these jellyfish. The best time to see these jellyfish is early in the morning. Can you imagine if you were canoeing or kayaking and you came across one of these jellyfish floating by?
And if you accidentally hit it with your boat, you'll have, you have to get a giant spatula and scrape it off the front of your boat.
Well, lucky for me, I always go swimming with some salt and pepper. It's delicious. I'm telling you, I love eggs.
Jason, is there any word on how big these actual fried egg jellyfish are?
These jellyfish are usually about a foot long. This jellyfish is about 2.5 feet in diameter. That's this big.
That could be actually a very good selling feature, foot-long fried egg.
Well, there was a case where there was a scuba diver just off the coast of Vancouver. He was swimming along, and he actually swam into one of these jellyfish, and the yolk broke all over him. He couldn't see nothing. He was freaking out. He's like, "Ah!" And he had to swim back up. He told his friends there was a giant egg down there. This scuba diver's name was Ronald Grimace. I can't make this stuff up. Links still down below.
Our next story comes from a town called Catskills in D.C., and it's about Catskills.
They have no cats. They are dog lovers.
Except for one cat that works for the police department. It has led some officers to a tree where there was a bird hanging upside down from a tree.
Or from string. It was a robin that was stuck with string, and it was hanging down, flapping around. There was a cat that was trying to get to it. At the same time, a rattlesnake was trying to get at this bird. And they started fighting and wrestling and an all-out cat fight.
They were probably saying something like, "No, this is my kite, you can't fly it."
So the owner of the property heard the rattlesnake. So when officials got there, they found this cat playing with this rattlesnake. All of a sudden, there was a clap of hands and a whistle, and the cat ran off.
The officers had originally thought that it was a person clapping and whistling, but it was actually discovered that it was a snake who had grown hands and lips due to an earlier exposure to uranium. There was no word whether or not the robin was on moonshine or had a gun.
You know what? This is the end of our show. Thank you so much for joining us. Another exciting OTL animal news. I know I find it exciting. Isaac, he finds it fun. But if you like what you heard and if you like what you saw, please subscribe. Hit that bird. Hit that bell. Because The early person that hits that bell will get notifications from our next episodes every time we launch.
That's right, that we upload every Thursday at 6. So, in order not to miss it, you just hit that bell.
We have links to all the stories down below. And remember, always support your local animal rescues.
Have a good night, everybody.
See you next week.